Hi everybody, I'm Mika Koelma for Hey Zomi. I'm the co-founder and run this business with my sister who's not here today. She lives up in the Northern Rivers region and she would love to be here. So I get to share my personal side of the story as well as answer some really great questions that have come in today. So who is Hey Zomi? I'm going to share where I began in my career to being here now. I'm 36 years old. I'm born and bred Novocastrian and have actually been living for 15 years overseas. Came back 2 years ago and started Hey Zomi. So how did I get there? Why did we decide to step into period care and create a new innovation? So I'm going to share that this morning. So Hey Zomi is a company focused on period care solutions that are not just solving inconveniences that we have when we have a period, but also focused on lifestyle solutions. And that's a big part that resonates with our community and why we even got into starting this business. We love that people can now have periods on their terms, and that's a bit of our slogan and the message that we give to menstruators out there. We designed a reusable menstrual disc called the Hey Zomi disc. I will tell you how we got to find and discover this kind of technology, how we brought it to market, and why it's changing lives. It's made from 100% medical grade silicone. It complies with the TGA, and we have IP registered the design in Australia and in the US. Thanks to DCC here, which is our legal team. They're awesome. It's flexible, it's soft, you can't feel it when it's in. And because it doesn't use suction to stay in place like cups, and it's positioned underneath your cervix, you can have activities like mess-free period sex, which doesn't feel like you're even on your period at that time of the month. This has really changed the game for me personally because I'm a nature enthusiast. Is that coming up? There we go. You will find me hanging off the side of a mountain somewhere when I'm traveling, and 12 hours on a trail all day without a bathroom on your period can be hugely inconvenient. I just felt like period care, like tampons or pads, even reusable underwear, just wasn't cutting it for me. It was a real struggle, and I was not going to miss out on opportunities like this just because I was menstruating. I grew up in Newcastle scuba diving. My father owned the dive shop in Newcastle, if anyone knows or remembers that business. And we'd be out on boats scuba diving all day with other divers. What do you do when you have your period? And if you're not a menstruator out there, like the thought passes your mind, like, what are the sharks gonna think when I'm diving on my, these are the things that you're challenged with when you're menstruating and you're out for adventures. You get on with it. I think we're taught, and our mind frame is you deal with it. You get on with it. You're in your job, busy all day. You're running around after your kids. You get on with it. But I think with the technology and what we can do, you can make it better. And we're seeing that with using the Hey Zomi disc. But I definitely wouldn't be here starting this business without my sister Zoe. She's amazing, and we kind of felt growing up, we were very different in our personalities, but shared really similar core values, I guess, growing up in the same household. Our context growing up was that both of our parents owned business. They were entrepreneurs. They had great success in their businesses, also went through bankruptcies, rebuilt business, and as children growing up in that environment, I think that nurtured the sense of risk-taking is great. Problem solving is a big part of who we are as people. You put your hard work and mind to it, you can do anything. And our parents really gave us that attitude as we were growing. Zoe comes from a corporate banking and finance and banking background. I'm an educator. I graduated from university at 21. I had a Bachelor of Arts and a Bachelor of Education degree. Pretty much I could be a music or an art teacher in high schools or primary schools. And that's how I started my career, in a high school on the Central Coast Grammar, teaching music. I went to Gosford High as a teacher after that, teaching visual arts and music. And then my husband Chris and I moved overseas. We moved to Buenos Aires in Argentina for 3 years. Amazing opportunity, working in an international school there, learning Spanish, living within culture, a different way of seeing the world and kind of expanding my horizon in who I was. And then we moved over to Malaysia for 8 years, and life there was fantastic. The food is amazing. I think it was the food that kept us there. But yeah, working in international schools, I loved my job. I love working with people. I love bringing people into a sense of who they are and finding their potential. And so that was always carried across in education, but I felt like there was more, and I never stopped learning. So I jumped into remotely, so I was in Malaysia doing my, with the University of Newcastle, I studied my creative industries masters. And that was really cool. It was all project-based. I had to travel around the world, and I was looking into artist co-working spaces, entrepreneurship and innovation in the arts. Developed a business in Malaysia with some artists there, and learned a lot about what that would take to actually make that business happen. At the same time working full-time in a school. So that was really interesting. Zoe in corporate banking, she was loving her job. She was kind of headhunted in senior management roles, looked at that above her, was very, very good at her work, and just realized that that lifestyle was not for her. She didn't want to have to be at work for 14 hours a day. She wanted to start a family. She wanted to try new passions, and she left that job early. She moved to Geelong with her husband, and then they went into Dili in East Timor and worked in an NGO over there. So her horizon grew. And we shared this journey together in business, and it was amazing to kind of think of growing up as children together, and then now as adults our horizons are expanded, and we were just like, we could do anything. Like we can go anywhere. So that openness kind of was the catalyst of what if we started a business together, put our opposite sides of the brain and just dominated the world. And I moved back 2 years ago to Australia during COVID. It was a very interesting period in time, but we decided to start a business, and we wanted to be strategic about it. So we were looking at things that we were passionate about, and menstrual health was a big part of that. I just finished a yoga instructor degree. I was passionate about health and the body and being connected in that way, and we'd talked about our menstrual journey for our whole life and the pains that we had. We looked up the TGA to see if we could register and make a menstrual disc, because it was such a game changer for us in our lives. I discovered menstrual discs about 6 years ago, and Zoe discovered cups, and these reusable products solve so many problems. As you can imagine, it's removing disposable period products from landfill, which is a huge problem. It's reusable, so it saves a lot of money for menstruators over a long period of time. Menstruators spend about $10,000 on period care in their life. That's a lot. It's a lot of extra cost. So Zoe and I decided to look into the TGA, see if this was possible, and in 2018, the TGA revoked that menstrual cups didn't have to be registered with their ARTG. So we could make one as long as we complied, which was really cool. And complying we did, and that was a whole other journey. But here we are in a co-working space in Lismore, close to where Zoe lives. This is her first child. She was breastfeeding as we were planning and trying to build a business and understand our goals, our vision, what we wanted to create. And it was great to have Zoe as a project manager in that. Her skills are amazing. So this is us. It was coming from, for me, like an international career. I didn't have to worry about money. We traveled 12 weeks a year paid as a teacher. It felt glamorous. And I came back to Australia during COVID, open to the possibility of starting a business, and it was a very different lifestyle for me. So I'll go into those realities. But a humbling start and a very organic way of building a business. We also were very creative about this. Like, how do we start making a menstrual disc? What are our ideas? What is important to us? Do we want to just make a quick product and flog it, or is there a bigger picture for us? I'm so passionate about menstrual health and understanding that, well, for me personally, I wanted to improve my quality of life on my period. Didn't just want to manage it, I wanted life to be better. So we were looking at, like, this is literally how we began, you know, kind of thinking about our customer. You know, we were like, wow, anyone with a period could use this. You know, we went all the way big, and we learnt that we kind of had to bring that messaging in. But it was always filled with joy and passion and authenticity in our approach with Hey Zomi. So as you can see, it's a bit of a cute start. And this was like, I think we were looking at functionality first. Like, this was our first kind of renderings or playful drawings of the Hey Zomi disc. It doesn't look like this anymore. Our branding and messaging has grown and blossomed. But designing a new innovation that is not in the market in Australia yet, we focused on functionality of the product. We did have to design this. We had to work with silicon engineers and make sure it actually worked. So I'll get to that process. But essentially, these are the benefits of using a menstrual disc. This was something I created in 2021 when we first began. And we had no idea what kind of tooling we would have to create with our engineers, if this was even possible, if it would even work in our bodies. But it's just a really lovely image for me anyway, to go, wow, we've come a long way since the bubblegum disc. And this is what it was like working as a startup during COVID. I was really good at Zoom. I'd been a teacher on Zoom in Malaysia for 2 years already, so I was used to this. For Zoe, she had a newborn, so she was jumping on whenever she could, and we were meeting with different silicon engineers to find the right one that we wanted to prototype with. We looked at other discs on the market that were in Canada or in the US at the time, and we were learning. We did a crash course in silicon engineering, like, how do we do this? What do we need? What's it going to take? When we made those first phone calls to the manufacturers to see who we would work with, we could start to get those costs coming in and build out on how much we would need to make something like this. Zoe and I have injected our own capital into this business. It's great to be lean and flexible and own 100% of your company at this stage. We make the decisions and we go with it, but we bring in a lot of professionals in those decisions to make sure we're moving forward in a great way. So yeah, this is kind of what it looked like at that time, which is cool. So these were some of our prototypes to get to where we are today. We designed 6 prototypes, totally blew the budget on that. I think we were quoted at, it'd take like $7,000 to get your prototype and go through that process. No, it tripled the cost by the time we were done, but we didn't want to compromise on quality. And, you know, it was down to millimeter of millimeters to get the flexibility right, the fit right. You know, Zoe fell pregnant during that prototyping phase, so it was literally down to me and my vagina to try and like make sure this worked. Until we got to like the final prototype and we got some more made and we had a testing group and it worked for them too. Phew. So it was such an interesting journey. You know, we would be telling our engineers like, quick, my period's due on Monday, like express post this prototype so that we could really give it a good run, you know. It's just some of these situations, it was so exciting and so fun. It was an 18-month process. It didn't take 6 months like they said it would. But that was, it was a wonderful time and a long waiting game when you're engineering something. You know, you're deciding on these changes. They have to go. It's, you know, all remote. You can't just go in and like pick it up and you're ready. And then you need to test it for some cycles. It takes time. But what we designed is, and why we wanted to differentiate in the market, well, menstrual discs are like diaphragms. Diaphragms are contraceptive device. They use spermicide. It sits under the cervix, and they've been around since the 30s, 1930. Now you can create a similar type of technology. It fully cups the cervix. It's not used as a contraceptive device, but it sits in the same way. And so we took that design. They're hard to use without a handle, so we thought, why don't we create a removal aid? There was none on the market that had that. And that was like our jump in. It was the thing that differentiated Hey Zomi. We were on our last prototype. We ordered the tool. The tool is a steel cast tool, had to be made in China with our company that's in Australia where we manufacture. So where was I with that? That was, a big learning process to get there, and we had to kind of make sure that handle worked with the tooling as well. The prototypes itself are very different to the actual product. It looks quite textured, and there was a lot of, friction involved with using these products. But you can even see some of the different kind of cavity shapes that we had here as we prototyped. Yeah. And the exciting part was once that tool was in, once that was ordered, it was waiting for that tool to be made before we could manufacture. That process was nearly 12 months, but we could get strategic. Like the packaging, that's like prototyping a whole nother product. By the end, I was like, just put it in a box. Like, I'm done. What was really exciting was we were able to travel to Melbourne, where our manufacturers are, and visit and learn about how the manufacturing process was. Look at the injection molding machines. Our team there are amazing. And I think showing up for your manufacturer, having those conversations, sharing your vision is actually really important. Something exciting for us was so we had a limited budget. It was our own capital in this. We could only, for our first run of discs, we could invest to get 4,000 discs made. Our manufacturers came back to us and said, that's actually really small. It's a small amount. What if you take off? What if you get through that really quick? And to get the liquid silicon to manufacture, we had lead times of 10 to 12 months at the time, thanks COVID. That was like a whole way to kind of logistically think. That pressure was there. They pretty much underwrote Hey Zomi for us and said, look, we'll buy double. We'll produce 8,000 for you, and they'll be sitting on the shelf so that when you're ready, you can just come back and they're there, and you'll know then to buy the silicon. Building that relationship was amazing and was beneficial for us, and we were really, really lucky. So we love them and think they're amazing, and they have bent over backwards. We've had complications with tooling since then. It's had to go back to China to get repaired, and it's on its way back to Australia, and we're so ready to manufacture our next run. A lot of things we're learning, a lot of problem solving along the way, but you just roll with the punches, get it done. We were very stoked. Zoe's literally I think she just could fly to Melbourne, really ready to give birth to a second baby. So she was awesome. We had a great time in Melbourne. We met our artist, which is a part of our brand. This is Marissa Moo, local artist in Melbourne. We just really resonated with her work about celebrating femininity, freedom in our bodies, in who we are, in our identities. And she painted a custom artwork for us that we bought and use it in our branding. We met her too. She's awesome. So with all this waiting, working remotely at my kitchen table with Zoe, I felt very isolated. We were living in Port Macquarie at the time, and my husband and I we got some work with Newcastle Uni, lecturing on one of their courses. We moved to Newcastle, and I tapped into that, and I thought, I just need help. I need a community around me. I need a network. We had no crowd. No one knew who Hey Zomi was. No one even knew what a menstrual disc was. It was the first of its kind. I came into I2N and I met with Richard, who was lovely, and just said, what can we do? I'm like, I feel so isolated. I don't know what I need. We are getting a disc that's coming in a few months. How do I get it to market? I've never done that before. And the accelerator program came at an amazing time for us, for me and for Zoe. And here I am with the cohort last year. I love that I had a place I could get away from my house, my washing, everything, and get a place to work with people who were discovering their businesses and going on the journeys that they needed. I remember that first day. You can see it's, I think in the startup world, we could say it's more male dominated. It's great. There was Jess and I there as well. But I remember that first session walking into the room. We're all introducing ourselves, our businesses, what we're innovating, what we're trying to solve. Telling this room of lovely people, I've made a menstrual disc and you could have mess-free period sex with it. And the guys are like, They had the best questions, and it wasn't just about female anatomy or menstrual health. Like questions that challenged my value proposition and our understanding of our customers. It was insightful and refreshing to have people show up for me in that way. I had Siobhan as a mentor. I had James Bradley as a mentor. Like without these people guiding me, challenging me, asking those hard questions, I know I wouldn't be here today. We probably wouldn't have had a menstrual disc in the market yet. And I'll come to those personal challenges I faced. To stand on that stage at the end of the accelerator and have a 5-minute pitch and kind of squish in who Hey Zomi was, that was really hard, really nervous. Come a long way since then, and that was end of November. Not that long ago. So Hey Zomi's had some great leaps since then, thanks to this program as well, for sure. So I'm going to find out what slide I'm on too, because I get lost in the journey. Okay, so where are we? So we were pushed I was pushed by James Bradley, who is our mentor and entrepreneur in residence for the accelerator. We had our tool manufacturing in December, and we got our first run of discs just before Christmas. They all landed in my house. I had mailer bags ready to go. We just got our packaging in, and we, were encouraged to just get it into customer hands. And I was like, but we're launching in April this year, like in 6 months' time. I'm not ready. He's like, you don't need to be ready. Just get them to market. And I was like, okay. He's like, just shove it in a plastic bag if you need to and get it out there. And that kind of lesson or that advice was the game changer for this business. By January, we were sending out the first pre-orders. We had about 100 pre-orders come in, which was great. I didn't think or know that people would buy a menstrual disc. That was awesome. Zoe and I had to build a website, obviously, to sell the disc. I remember I had a talk over in the Newy Tech people space, another community that I've connected with and love. And even an hour before that presentation talking about my business, I was like trying to connect our bank account to the website with Shopify to try and like make sure I can take pre-orders. It was down to like the last hour, and it was exciting and so nervous to do that. And we had our first pre-orders that night, which was awesome, and it worked. So by January, our discs went out into the world. We had them in customer hands. They were being used for the first time. And getting that feedback in was essential for us to kind of test the market in a small way. We had to consider who was our target audience and what messages were resonating with menstruators out there. Sure, there's many menstruators in the world, but we all manage our periods differently. We all understand our bodies differently. And so listening to menstruators, connecting in those networks and kind of leaning into the innovation was the cycle that made Hey Zomi grow and succeed. So by having the first white discs in the market, by April we also had our black discs. So we have 2 colored discs. Didn't know which one would be more popular. Felt like the black disc would be a great option because silicon stains with the protein in our blood. I prefer the white disc. I don't mind stains, but everyone loves the black disc. And that was great to find out because it's changed the way we're going to manufacture this run. So official launch in between January and April, we brought in people who could help us strategically plan. Marketing was something that we didn't even really budget for back in Lismore in that planning room. You know, we had our budget, let's say, of $100,000, $7,000 was for marketing. You need a lot more than that, especially in e-com, right? Like your digital marketing is the big push out there. If you get that messaging right and you have, you know, your branding coming through, that's really helped support people discovering Hey Zomi and this innovation. So we strategically focused on our messaging. By April, we launched Hey Zomi officially in our heads, but it had already been going on for 4 months. In March, we had 32 orders. So we had no marketing before then. It was just our own networks and building quite organically. 32 discs for that month. I could manage that in my garage. We hit the ad spend on Meta and Google, and we made 200 orders in April. That was really exciting. Oh, something's working. What if we inject some more money into this? Let's see if we can manage the levers and let this fly. April 200, May 460 orders. Like, oh, this is cool. This is growing like it's flying. June 650 orders. So it was really, really exciting to see that growth and see that potential. In 3 months, we'd made $100,000 in revenue. And that's exciting because for the first time, we didn't have to put our own capital into Hey Zomi. That's huge growth in 3 months. We have 5 online stockists, and we have more people or wholesalers who are wanting to work with us, which is exciting, but we're at capacity. So we have our next batch of 4,000 discs in my garage at the moment. I think I can kind of talk about this. I'll get to that in a second. And we're looking to move to 3PL provider because I can't run this business and do all the fulfillment to customers and all the customer service required. But it's amazing to be at that stage logistically, and I'll talk more about that. So digital marketing went great. We also decided to invest in some PR. Like, we needed to build our brand. No one knows who Hey Zomi is, and we actually want to be thought leaders. We want to be Australia's providers of menstrual health education and resources. Education is a huge part of this game for Hey Zomi. I didn't actually know where my cervix was until I was 32. Isn't that crazy? And that's a big part of menstrual health and being able to use products like this. We want menstruators to feel comfortable and confident when they're using these products, and education is the link for them. It's that bridge. So we were getting some publicity. We were getting in magazines and newspapers. We were looking at, you know, thought leadership in business, which is really exciting. We got into some mainstream publications with some really hot topics that we're passionate about. It's wonderful to have to be a part of these conversations that have in the media been considered as gross or not shouldn't be talked about. We want to remove stigmas. Hey Zomi wants to be a part of this change and this conversation. Femtech and the innovation around creating these type of products is exciting. This space is growing. It's valued huge. I think by 2030 it's valued at $6 billion. That's huge growth. And to be part of that is great, and to be recognized is great. We also have been challenging the government a little bit by what we think. You know, it's amazing that free period care is going to be offered in the ACT. We're in full support, but there's other problems with that. And sustainability is a big part of Hey Zomi. You know, to give free period products is expensive for the government, as well as going to cause a lot of more issues in landfill. You know, why can't they talk to reusable companies and bring that into the conversation? What other solutions are available, and how can we manage that better? So we're pushing back a little bit, supportive, but also want to make more change in a more impactful way. Yeah, and this was a big goal. I don't know if anyone knows Frankie magazine, but it's a female entrepreneur and creative business magazine that just came through on Monday. And that was like our goal with our PR agency too. Please, can we get into Frankie magazine? We love them. And we did, and it's really exciting. And through the PR, we were invited to speak 2 weeks ago at the Online Retailer Conference in Sydney. That was really exciting. We were together. Zoe flew down. We hadn't been together since April. We kind of ate our way around Sydney for those days 2 weeks ago. And it was wonderful to be on stage with her presenting who we were, our journey from entrepreneurship to innovation. Really special times in our journey. And great to kind of see the landscape of e-com, like understanding that, you know, it's such an isolated journey in my house fulfilling orders, and all of a sudden there were like products and services and founders and entrepreneurs in this space, and we could kind of mix and mingle, and it was very overwhelming for me, but loved it at the same time. What an opportunity. And this is the behind the scenes of my startup. You know, it's not that glamorous. There's been a lot of like homegrown things to get those discs out there. We have these gorgeous little cotton bags in order for people to store or carry their menstrual discs with them. They came in a big box, very crushed. I ironed them all for you. And it's like such a learning journey because we can't have that. It's just a little glitch. It takes so long to do that. So we've kind of streamlined that, and now the manufacturers of these bags put them into the boxes for us before they get crushed and then ship our packaging to us. But I wouldn't have known, you know? I've done it the hard way, but actually I feel really proud of that. I think you kind of need to go through the unglamour of being a founder, for sure. And this is like me in my garage most days, having to pack the boxes, having to fulfill orders. Yeah, so that's a bit of behind the scenes. So where are we now? So this is Chris and I on Monday. All of our stock arrived. 6,000 units are ready to go to ShipBob warehousing in Sydney. They're really great. They usually there's a minimum of 1,000 orders a month with fulfillment services. We're nearly there. We can get there. Probably next month if we inject that money into our ad spend, which is exciting. And we've just been waiting on our product to land to give to them. This week we've had to sort these boxes. We've had damaged lids, you know, unglamorous aspects of this. We've had to replace all those lids. Hours of work, lots of fun, lots of good tunes. Lucky that we're, you know, positive people about this. So next week we'll be driving all of our packaging, our discs, all those components down, and they're going to be doing the kitting and the fulfillment for us. And to have those logistics in place means that we are ready to grow. Yay. Can't wait. And we just found out we're a finalist in Outstanding Startups in Hunter Business. Really cool. And yeah, and this was a photo, I just love it because it was my first pre-orders going out in January. So yeah, it's a bit emotional actually, it's cool. So I just wanted to end there. Thank you for your time. I'm going to answer some questions now, and yeah, this is Hey Zomi, so thank you.
Thanks, Mika. So we'll just grab a seat. Yes. We've taken some questions at registration, so thanks to those people that asked. And we'll go through some of those first and then throw to the audience if we've got time. We'll try and get done by 9 because people have to go to other places. We usually say the parking police are out, but they're not out at 9 because that's when the parking time starts. So you've got a little bit of time if you do go over. Grab a seat, Mika. Well done. Thank you so much. Sorry. Okay, so I've got a question here from Peter Morrissey from HunterNet Cooperative, and he's asking, what were you all learning from experiences with venture capital discussions?
Yeah, I think, like I said before, it's great to have the flexibility as a lean startup, but we are looking to expand to global markets. And from conversations I've had, we can grow there, but we're also first to market, being the first Australian menstrual disc available, and to, talk to maybe some VCs and want to work with them and what they could bring to Hey Zomi is very appealing. I think we realize that we need to kind of start building those relationships now. And so I've connected in with SBE, I don't know if anyone knows that company, but they've got a membership program. They can kind of look at where you're at, what you need, and connect you in with investors. So we're looking at options to consider those things. But we haven't had any conversations directly about it. So that's where we're at, yeah.
Tara Lewis from the University of Newcastle alumni team's asking, what advice would you give to recent graduates from the uni?
Ooh, that's a good question. You have to kind of take the skills that you're learning and live with it. I would say like go out and live life a lot more. Build healthy relationships, build healthy habits. I don't think I could have started Hey Zomi when I graduated at 21 years old. And I couldn't have done it with my sister at 21 years old. We both acknowledge that. We were so different back then. And starting in education to now being a founder in menstrual health is a big pivot in my career. And that whole process mentally was something that I had to go through as well as a founder. So you just need to live, apply the skills that you've learned, and you test that along the way, socially, culturally, in your work ethic, in your practice. That would be my advice. Yeah, you just need to go and apply that stuff and try and be healthy along the way. Yeah.
We've got a question here from Celia Boyd from KPMG who asks, what kind of support do you need for the next stage of your business journey, and how could the people in the audience help?
We are looking to scale quickly. We want to be aggressive about it. We're already considering exit strategies and thinking that if we know where we want Hey Zomi to be in 5 or 10 years, that's actually going to determine our direction and how we pivot and move and angle that as a company. I think talking to investors is something we're interested in. And I actually find the things that have moved Hey Zomi forward is speaking to industry professionals, other founders who have gone through this before, and building out our networks. So that would be for the audience, like if you have connections or you've heard our story and could think of someone you know or someone that you could connect us with, we're very open to sharing ourselves and being transparent and building those relationships. Yeah.
Jess Hodge from Resourceful Living asks, is there a particular goal that you hit in your business earlier than expected?
Yes. Yes. So again, that push to get to market way earlier than anticipated and just get our product out there was so key to Hey Zomi. If we'd have launched in the April, we wouldn't have had all of that customer feedback. We wouldn't have tested. We did a little test with marketing online to see what resonated. Getting it out there and into people's hands and not worrying if it's perfect was a big thing that helped and was way earlier. Yeah, to get them in January rather than April was way earlier than anticipated. So
yeah, I remember when we were having our mentoring sessions during the accelerator phase of the program, and James and I were encouraging you to do pre-orders. Like your ask on demo note was, the website's up, live, here's a special code for a discount, we're taking orders right now. And you're quite hesitant it was like, oh, we're not ready yet. But then you would come in and go, so we've got the packaging prototype. I'm like, oh, you've got packaging? Like here we are pushing you to do it without even any packaging. But you were so far advanced on so many steps without you even realising just how far advanced you were.
Yeah, I don't think I realised it. And I didn't, you're at your kitchen table, like you're in your own feedback loop. But I knew like we had the disc coming by December, hopefully. Well, it needs a box, so I might just work on that now. And I think coming from a visual arts and graphic design background, like I can do that. Like we can build a website. I'm a photographer, so I'm in the Newcastle uni there with my friends, like in their underwear with a disc. Like okay, I'll take photos. They'll be good for the website. Yeah. And all of a sudden, we've like built out our visual look. It was very organic. Lucky to have those skills to transfer and work with because they're expensive parts of building your business. But we just leveraged that and jumped in, hoping for the best, but knowing actually strategically like we need these things. So let's just get them done. But I didn't know that it was really important to fly with it. And then we had all these things. You're like, well, you've got it. What are you waiting for?
How is this not already up online?
Yeah.
It was great. Like, but it's funny as a founder how you might not think you're waiting for perfection. You're waiting for the right time, and there isn't a right time. It's just do it, right?
Yes. Yeah. And Zoe's really good at this, and James and yourself said this too. Like, if it's good enough, go for it. Zoe, it was so funny. James was talking to me in one of our meetings about this. Like, why don't you just do your pre-orders and launch it, you know, on pitch night? Like, make that your date. I'm like, that's in like 4 weeks. Like, can we do this? Look, let me just check with Zoe. And I call her in this meeting. And Zoe's like, yeah, of course, let's do it. I was like, oh, I thought we were waiting till April. She's like, no, it's good enough, just go. And that was like a key learning.
Yeah.
Scary.
Yeah.
But great.
We've got another question here from Jordan Freeman from Aerial Community. What has been your biggest lesson learned to date?
That one.
Yeah.
If it's good enough, it's good enough. Yeah. It doesn't need to be perfect. And you actually do need that feedback. That's so important. That is part of the strategy. Like, if you don't know what people will think of it, what they're asking for you in return, you know, lucky like that it works for people. Like, oh, that was also like a huge relief that it works for their bodies too. Yeah, all of that. That was a huge lesson, and actually a huge inner work for me. Like, I had to kind of change my headspace of being this like, in the startup phase of like, I'm founding a business, to like, oh, I am the founder of Hey Zomi, and this is what I'm providing, and this is what I'm passionate about, and owning that. Yeah, that was such a shift.
The other thing I'm really interested to learn a little bit more about from your perspective is, you know, when you first come up with the idea, it's like all the menstruators in the world would want to use this product, but we know actually that's not the case, because people have their own lived experience of how they manage their periods. And I was one of those people, 46 years old, menstruating since I was 15, always using tampons and pads, and then I have to mentor a founder who's revolutionising period care, and me having to question my own system of how I do this and how much I'm willing to change, like my day to day. Because man, you get in the habit of just you're buying tampons off the shelf every month at the supermarket. You just don't even give it a second thought anymore. And now it's like, no, now I've got to completely change the way I do it, because I was testing a prototype for Mika and giving her feedback on I don't know about the white colour. I feel like, you know, it should be a different colour. Anyway, but yeah, like, and learning like your internal workings as a 45-year-old woman at that time was quite shocking to me, like how much we don't know about our own bodies. And that whole education piece about targeting in on an audience that's willing to just really quickly, yeah, cool, no worries, I'll change how I look after my period. And we talked about, you know, do you target teenagers who are first menstruators? Do you target 20-year-olds? Do you target people who are more into natural healthcare or previous like cup users? How did you settle in on how, like, when you're doing your Google AdWords now, who do you zero in on as an audience?
Yeah, and so
it
good.
might not be the 46-year-old woman that's been using tampons for a
yeah,
while, right?
Yeah, and it's really interesting, digital marketing, because it is very visual, and you have like a 15-second window to capture their attention and get their interest. And when you've never done that before, you know, you can be testing and trying and doing that for months and spending a lot, but we saw value in bringing in someone to work with us strategically and have a digital marketer help us. A big part of this type of product is behavior change, as you said, and education. I feel lucky I'm an educator, because I love being on camera, I love making videos, I love talking about the anatomy. Building out those resources was natural to me and exciting and fun. For our website, for our marketing, and then your audiences. Until we had discs in people's hands and getting that feedback in, who were the people that really did resonate with this product, and what problem were we solving for them? So it was always focused on finding the solution for that certain demographic. Little did we know that new mums that have menstruated again have learnt about their bodies a lot more, have no time to manage their periods. And I think maybe with the way Zoe and I present and our demographic ourselves, there's a lot of resonance there. And so new mums are our biggest marketing audience. Had no idea.
Yeah,
had no idea, and love that. Love that it's solving solutions for them and their bodies. We thought it'd be like the hard-working, younger, you know, new to careers.
Horse riding, scuba diving.
Yeah. We'll get to that niche. We'll get there, but you do have to start somewhere to build out your brand, to get discs out, and the power of word of mouth. For someone to say, I've just tried this thing in my body and it works and it's changed my life, is so powerful. So to have reviews coming in, to have friends discussing it, to see that discussion on Facebook is exciting for us at this stage.
We had it at one of our female founders dinners where
the whole conversation,
and
we talked for like periods for an hour, you know?
It was really interesting, like all the different questions people had around their own personal use of different products in the past, and it's such an individual journey, and it's even girlfriends when you get together, you kind of sometimes talk about stuff like that, but not usually. And so you just kind of take for granted this is something that just happens and you do it and you manage it in your own way. And it's not often you get to reflect back as a group and talk about that. It's been really fascinating.
Yeah.
Everyone's individual, unique experiences in this space that we often don't talk about. I've got a question here from Monique Mrs. from Hello Storytime, who's asked, what are the biggest benefits and challenges starting up a business as sisters, and what do you wish you did differently, if anything?
So cool. And there's so many personal ways I could answer this, because Zoe and I both acknowledge that 15, 20 years ago, we could not have started Hey Zomi together. You go through so much with a sibling to then decide if it's going to be the right decision to work together. But Zoe and I have lived, like we've really lived and seen the world, and kind of come out of childhood and how we've grown up together to really know what we want and what we're passionate about. Coming back to Australia 2 years ago, Zoe was like, look, I think it's time we started a business. I was like, oh, okay, what does this mean? What's this going to look like? And organically, we've had to work together to discover the best way to work remotely together, but to work as a team. We trust each other so much, that's never not been there, and to have that with a co-founder is so important. So we didn't have to develop that. I felt like it was a really quick working relationship because we had that trust. And I think being maturer than when I was 20 in that kind of sibling relationship, we really work hard at bringing our best selves. I mean, Zoe's got 2 under 3 years old, 2 little ones. So she is mentally under pressure and drained. And, you know, for her to just show up at 9 p.m. at night, because that's the only time she's got, you have to approach that conversation with a lot of empathy and compassion. And I try and do that, and I know she tries and does that for me. When I'm like flogged from being the legs of things and I show up, Zoe's like, are you okay? You know, or I can say, I'm actually struggling. To be very transparent and vulnerable with someone is a strength, I think. And that's what makes this work, and why I feel so lucky to work with her. I don't have to pretend. I can be very real, and we support each other in that, and just try and communicate as best we can. And I think that's a superpower. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I remember on some of our mentoring sessions where you were really honest about, like, you know, we always say, hey, we even did it this morning. Hey, how are you? She's like, good. Actually, I'm really exhausted. Because you get in the habit of just saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Or sometimes when you're tired, you even respond that you're good before the person who hasn't even asked you how you actually are.
Yeah.
Because you just... Anyway, I think it's just... that was something that I really appreciated in having mentoring sessions with you, was you being very honest about the journey that you were on and how you were feeling at that time, because it helped me hopefully provide you with some better advice or reassurance or whatever. But just a hot tip for founders, please be honest about how you're feeling and like what's going on in your life that day, because it just makes everyone otherwise is just going to assume everything's great. And if it's not, you need that help early, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's good you've got that with your sister.
Yeah, it's amazing, yeah.
Final question here before we throw to the audience. Stephanie Jordan's asked, how have you navigated the regulatory hurdles in this category?
So that was strategic from the beginning. Like, we knew we could make a menstrual disc and didn't have to pay to the ARTG $25,000 to make this. And, you know, a lot of like registration and applications take a long time, but we didn't have to. But we just had to comply with those regulations and make sure we really adhered to that. And we could. That's across like our content, the advertising even has regulations, our instruction manuals, the language we use, the barcoding, the batch numbers, all the things, and you just make sure you comply. So that was really great. Another thing was IP registration. Going into that, it was great to have conversations with Lauren, and even before coming to the accelerator, we'd engage with a few legal teams just to find out what we needed to do. That was interesting because we could register the outer design of the disc as an IP registration. It's not a new innovation. There are discs in the world, but no one can copy the design of our disc because the outside is protected, which is pretty much the product, which is kind of cool. But to kind of consider what markets do we want to protect that in? How long is that process? And when can we start selling the disc? I needed that conversation with Lauren. I needed to go through that and then have a legal team take that on for us. Trademarking, Hey Zomi, again, having a legal team sort that out for us and not being afraid to pay and outsource for that support because you need to tick them off and get that done and then you're ready to fly. So yeah, that was how we navigated it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Throw to the audience. Has anyone got a question?
Yeah, I do. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Interested to know how you went around testing your pricing strategy.
Yeah, great question. I guess there were already reusable menstrual products on the market. Cups, there's hundreds of options. Discs, there was only 6 at the time in the world when we started designing. So we could kind of compare on what they were selling for. I think look at your market and figure that out. And we've been trialing that. Like in Australia, it's expensive to post product and that's an added cost on top. So you have to consider that. You know, if we're selling retail for 55 Australian dollars, we started with like, is it $6 postage? So it keeps, you know, just within 60, or we've bumped that up to now $10, and in international post it's $20. That's expensive, but people buy it because it's a solution that lasts for 5 or more years for their menstrual management, which is cool. But we don't know until we try, and we can adjust as we go. But yeah, look at what's in the market and test. Yeah.
Did you change anything based on the customer feedback in that January-February period?
Definitely our messaging had to blossom and grow, and that was, you know, what kind of language would we use on the ads, what kind of angle would we take. That was important. And customer service or customer management, like when people come with questions or problems, how we do that. Without having the disc in people's hands and being used, I would not know how to answer that. So all of a sudden, someone might come with, I'm leaking. That's like everyone's biggest nightmare. Most people have anxiety with a product that won't work on their period. But it's usually because we just don't know what's going on in there. It's not easy, you can't just see in. So finding out how to solve those problems, having discussions with customers. Like for me, it's not uncommon, maybe every fortnight there's a customer who's really struggling. Maybe they've got prolapse, maybe there's something I don't know, and I'll jump on the phone if they're open to it, and I'll have a customer conversation and get that information and help support them. But it's so important and valuable to then understand how I'm going to serve my customers better. And that's a big part. People just need to feel heard, and then you can decide on how you use that information. You know, more education resources have come out. How do you find your cervix? I've made a video on that one. Have a little anatomical model that we use that supports people accessing the product, but I think being supported in their menstrual journey as well. And that's what we really care about. So, yeah.
Andrew.
I was curious to know if you had considered what process you might have to take and what the cost would be if the patent was infringed by someone else.
Yeah. It's kind of a scary thought. And you know, people say, do you IP register your product if you're going to sue someone for infringing it, can you afford that? At this stage, to be very transparent, like we don't have a big budget to fight for that. What we've been advised on is that you can write a strongly worded letter. We would engage with our legal team for that support and tell them to stop what they are doing. But you know, a lot of, I guess also understanding the market, like a lot of copycat products come out on Amazon. we would be writing to Amazon saying, do you know they're impinging on this? And they have a license to pull those products off the market. That made us feel a little bit more confident. And also, I think making sure we build our brand and people know that we are the right product that's high quality, that's, you know, solving the problems that you can trust, that we need to grow that so that our customers realize that you don't want the one that you don't know what kind of silicon is being used or the standard of manufacturing. But we haven't had to navigate it, but it is in our minds. So something to learn, and I hope we don't have to do that, but yeah.
One more question? Matt, sorry. Oh, we'll take both. Matt first.
What's the origin of your name, Hey Zomi?
So we wanted, first it was like we want a easy thing to remember. We wanted a URL address. Like as soon as we said, yes, we're making menstrual disc, we're gonna do it, what are we gonna be called? It's like we had that in 2 days, came out with lots of names. Zoe and Mika came with the Zomi factor. The only thing we could find with Zomi is there's a Burmese tribe in Myanmar called the Zomi people. Otherwise, Hey Zomi wasn't taken as a URL, and we wanted something new because this product is new. Yeah, so there you go. Hey Zomi.
Do you see your product on shelves next to all the other courier products that are available, or you use sticking with online sites?
We are looking to probably cement our brand by getting into retail. It'd be great to get into Coles and Woolworths. We have customers asking, where can I buy this? Can I go to a shop? The only reusable products on shelves are cups. We are not a menstrual cup. We don't use suction. It's very different. It gives you different lifestyle options. So to be an Australian-made product and be on Australian shelves, I think is definitely part of our strategy, and something we think we might want to cement while we are the first in the market before we go overseas, or if we can do both at the same time, depending who we speak with and what we can leverage. Yeah, it's definitely part of our strategy to do that. Yeah.
All right, well, we'll have to wrap it up there because we've just hit 9 o'clock. Thank you so much, Mika. If we can give Mika a round.
Thank you.